Where the F are all the feminists? I'll tell you where they are. They're the ones with their mad short fringes and their placards cheering on the sex fetishising perverts who want to listen to little girls having a tinkle in the changing rooms or readjusting their tiny little minute string thong over their gonads. That's where they are. They're on the wrong side of the debate, aren't they? Where are they as well? Oh, yeah, that's right. They're standing outside the migrant hotels for all these men from sexually repressed countries who haven't even seen an ankle or an eyelash in 20 years, suddenly being allowed to just rove around freely and chat up little girls on park benches because they think that that is the right side of history to be on. Well, guess what? It is not. They're also the ones, unfortunately, and don't make me sound like some sort of modern-day Mary Whitehouse, who are also filling young girls' minds with this idea that it is empowering to fill your lips with silicone and have a butt implant and pose on Instagram and be like a Kardashian, and that it's just liberty and empowerment to live in a hypersexualized society. They should be the ones doing what I've been doing for the best part of 4 years, which is banging on about the risk of lots of men from barbaric countries coming over here and what that means for girls growing up, or banging on about the fact that pornography is one of the greatest ills that is dismantling our society and leading to a hypersexualization that is having untold consequences on girls especially. But they're nowhere to be seen. And Jo Bartosch, brilliant assistant editor of The Critic, is asking much the same thing. I'm delighted to have her on the programme so we can moan about the lot of it. Hello, Jo.
Hello. Hiya. At this point, I feel the need to point out I am, in fact, a feminist.
Yeah, well, no, this is it. It's a dirty word now. I always just say that I'm on the side of the sisterhood instead, and I will fight bloody hard for girls. I don't care. I call it the other day called Fatima, who was like taking umbrage at the fact saying, you're painting all these migrant men as sex pests and, you know, blah, 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 and da-da-da. And I've been attacked by white men because I wear a hijab. And I said, listen, girl, I'm the first one to stand up and say you should be able to wear that hijab and not be attacked for it. But I also expect to be able to have my blonde hair out without being some sort of, you know, big shining beacon to someone who's just got off a boat.
I think that's fairly reasonable, yeah. Nothing to disagree with there, yeah.
But where have the feminists gone? Like,
well,
you know, why are these leftist women so beguiled by things that are just completely against the interests of women and girls?
Well, I think the problem is it's the ones that have got the microphone. It's the loud, noisy ones, the ones that get amplified, that tend to make the headlines and tend to get the attention. Actually, I think there was a huge grassroots feminist movement opposing this sort of thing. Everything from pornography, prostitution. It's just, you know, nobody really wants to listen to feminists, sadly. They prefer the corporate feminists who get sponsorship, who get, you know, their grants, who get, and that's sort of what the problem is. I think with regard to this specific issue, I think you're probably referring to an article I wrote today, which is in Spiked, which was calling out the fact that I think around 200 frontline women's organisations had signed a letter condemning the government and condemning ministers for suggesting that there might in fact be a problem with sexual abuse and rape and harassment from men in migrant hotels. I think that's an entirely fair thing to suggest that there could indeed be a problem importing people who have very different values. I mean, that doesn't seem like rocket science. That seems entirely reasonable. I think it does have to be seen in the context of the fact that actually, you know, 90% of rapes are committed by men who are known to the woman. You know, that's also a fact. So it's not a majority. It's not the majority of sexual violence. But I think if we believe women, then we also believe the women who say they feel threatened, who feel they feel being harassed. So, you know, it's either you believe women or you don't. And I think in this instance, it's very easy to dismiss the concerns of women who are genuinely fearful about what's happening in their communities.
I mean, this is it. People always throw the statistic like the majority of rapes in the UK are committed by white people. Well, yes, because we're a white majority country, so that should be borne out statistically. But it is still a disproportionate overrepresentation of men from other countries, particularly Muslim countries. And I'll tell you what, someone needs to dig down into the statistics of gang rapes, because gang rapes, them all getting together as a feral pack and doing it as some sort of sport, seems to be a particular proclivity of a certain group of men.
It is also something that that obviously is then used as pornography, which then which then in turn, it tends to be recorded, and I think men then bond over the pornography, and this is something again that we're just not having conversations about, and I think it is changing the way we relate to each other as sexes. I think that there's a growing gulf between the way men and women relate to each other, and a real suspicion and hostility, and I think it is encouraging girls to see themselves as sexual objects and encouraging men to see women as prey, and I think that cuts across all nationalities, but at the same time, I do agree that there are specific problems with specific cultures that need to be addressed.
I mean, pornography, I'm so glad you brought this up. This is a topic that I've been banging on about for years. In fact, my previous employer, a broadcaster who I will not name, banned me from talking about that woman's stuff. They actually put a gagging order on me ever talking about this subject, but which is disgusting, because I think it's so important, because when you look at the societal change since especially user-generated content pornography came along, and I'm preaching to the converted here, but for the audience there are multiple problems with this. One is the provenance of the videos. You don't know if that woman's been trafficked, coerced, if she's on drugs, if this is a rape video that's been put up online. In fact, when Visa had to do an audit of all content on Pornhub, I think it's 88% of videos had to immediately be taken down. But also it's the content of these videos, and the fact that there was a survey done, I think, for the female magazine, for the Daily Mail, by Survation a number of years ago, of teenage girls. And when you look at the statistics of the amount of girls who have given oral sex but not even had their first kiss, who have had the alternative form of sex from the alternative pathway at the age of about 14 and haven't had their first kiss, the normalisation of slapping, spitting, all of these things that are just ultimately degrading, that instead women are being told, you should like this. The 50 Shades of Grey fallacy. You're not cool if you don't like this. There's something wrong with you. This is titillating. This is exciting. It has broken that most important of social contracts between a man and a woman when it comes to respect, when it comes to delayed gratification, and as a result we are so deeply unsafe that we've got to the point that we've got Lily Phillips and Bonnie Blue.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you couldn't ask for a more sort of horrific role model, could you? And we're also seeing a rise in choking, which is now the second most common cause of strokes in women under 40, which is, something that was sort of niche, that was rare. And that's the problem with pornography. So, well, there are many problems, but that's one of the main problems, is that it lures you towards more and more extreme content, because what previously aroused no longer does. So we are seeing men effectively locked into cycles of more and more degrading and abusive content, and it is warping their idea of what sex is, of what women are, and we're just not talking about it. And I mean, I work quite closely with people in the women's sector, and for years they've been talking about pornogenic injuries in girls and women. And it's like, where are the Cobra meetings? Why isn't this being taken seriously? Where's the sort of pandemic style response? Because it really is something is that threatening to the nature of what it even is to be human, that we need to start taking it seriously.
Jo, can I just say, you've got a book coming up, Pornocracy, on all of this. I'm going to be the first person to buy it. I want to work with you on this stuff. I've been banging on about this, for want of a better phrase, for years now, and I am so, so glad that you are sticking your head above the parapet, that you've done this brilliant body of work. Come back on my show. Let's actually sit in person and have a long conversation about this, because it is something that matters so much to me. And I think that, we need to be the vanguards on all of this. Jo Bartosch, excellent assistant editor of The Critic.